It's the Sports Wrap on a Wednesday. Sam Yarnell in for Jason, as I am on the middle day of the week every week on this fine program. We got a loaded show coming up for you today. Big story out of the NBA last night. My close personal friend, AM New York sports writer JJ Beale, right around the corner to break all of the NBA happenings down, as we're 2 weeks into the regular season, and the in-season tournament continues to roll on Tuesdays and Fridays. Lots of headlines in the NBA all around that. Tino Pattigno just around the corner to stop by and break down the huge F1 race coming up in Vegas this weekend. First time the F1 circuit makes its way to Sin City, and it's in 2023.
Just a hunch, by the way, Sam, just a hunch. I got a feeling he's got a lot to say today. I think he's got a lot to say.
As you hear the ghost of Jason making his presence felt on the Sports Wrap, I have a feeling Tino, it's going to be the Tino show today. I mean, the amount of knowledge that guy usually has about F1, I think that Tino's going to have a lot to say. And his close personal connections to Vegas, the guy just knows a bunch. Very excited to see what our friend Tino has right around the corner.
I think JJ Beale should try to top him. I think JJ Beale should try to see if he can even know more than Tino knows about F1. I think he's up for the challenge. I think he's up for it today. Yeah.
Name 4 drivers on the F1 circuit, JJ. We'll break into the rundown. We'll talk about NFL and baseball at the end of the show. JJ, name 5 F1 drivers.
Daniel Ricciardo.
I'd go Elio Castroneves. Is he still doing it?
That's a wild first one. Daniel Ricciardo as the first name you throw out there is a wild one.
Max Verstappen.
There you go. That's 2. We got 2.
Ding, ding, ding. And that's it.
Well, you tried. You tried. I have a hunch Tino might take it just a little bit longer than that. Let's get into what JJ came here to talk about. It's the National Basketball Association season rolling on, a season like we've never seen before, with the in-season tournament going on for the first time as well. And JJ, speaking of the in-season tournament, we had lots of action all around the league in the in-season tournament last night, including a game between the Golden State Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves, where we had a real brouhaha breakout between Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, Jaden McDaniels, Klay Thompson. Everyone was involved. Three of those players were ejected. Now I hear people talking about all this beef between Rudy and Draymond Green. And I need you to explain it to me, because we talk so much about how I may not be the most prevalent NBA follower, and I'm sure there's a listener out there who's just like me. Explain to me what this beef is and where it stems from, and how last night came to be between Draymond and Rudy Gobert.
So I want to start by, kind of clarifying what this scuffle was. You called it a brouhaha. I would go as far as to say it was a Donnybrook and potentially a full-blown riot out on the court last night. But this all started last year, when after Draymond, punched his other teammate, now Washington Wizard Jordan Poole. But after that, Gobert tweeted something about how, throwing shade at Draymond, basically saying it's always loud, or I forget what he said. But then when the Timberwolves got knocked out of the playoffs last year, Draymond then tweeted right back at Gobert, tweeting him from earlier in the season. So these two just do not like one another. It's as simple as that. And Draymond also has a tendency to get ejected from games that Steph Curry does not play in. And so I think the funniest part about this fight was that it was 0-0. No points had been scored yet in this game. It was the first 2 minutes of the game, and immediately a fight broke out. I mean, I haven't seen moves like that since you lived at Pembroke and I started talking trash about the Bills. And then those moves were broken out. But other than that, I mean, just absolute chaos on the basketball court. But yeah, it's as simple as that. Draymond Green does not like playing in games that Steph Curry doesn't play in, and he certainly does not like Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I will say, I will come clean and say it. When JJ and I lived together when we were both in college, there was more than one chokehold that was had out when people spoke ill on our Lord and Savior Josh Allen.
What is wrong with you people? What is wrong? What is wrong with you people? Like,
Jason,
who gets into fights over?
We're 20-year-old boys.
Who gets into
we're
fights?
20-year-old boys.
Who gets into fights over sports? Like, what caveman mentality
Rudy
is
Gobert
this?
and Draymond Green do.
Well, those are grown men. Those are grown men.
Listen, the fight aside, these are two teams that have a lot of stories surrounding them right now, and the Timberwolves are really interesting to me. JJ, are they a top 10 team in the NBA right now?
Oh, they're absolutely a top 10 team in the NBA, without a doubt. I mean, you just look at what they've done on the defensive end so far, leading the NBA in net rating with 102.1 defensive rating as well. I mean, this team is just absolutely spectacular. They've really figured it out on the defensive end, and now the offense just needs to catch up for them. There's a lot of turnovers on the offensive side of the ball as well, averaging 16.1 turnovers per game. So you know that they're going to figure it out on that end of the floor. And once they do, this is going to be an even more dangerous team. But right now, the defense is what has made this team so good, and they beat the Warriors in back-to-back games. So it's a Timberwolves world. We're just living in it.
Speaking of those Warriors who they've beat in back-to-back games, they've lost 4 straight. Golden State has. Now, we've got Curry dealing with this injury. What is the concern level for the Warriors right now?
It should be sky high. I mean, this Warriors team, in every game that Steph Curry has played in this year, he's led them in points. He is their offense. He is their only offense. And you can finally start to see the cracks in the Warriors foundation showing, especially with how talented this Western Conference is. They should be absolutely terrified. And shockingly, Chris Paul has not helped or solved any of their problems.
Former Wizard Chris Paul, by the way. Let's not forget the time that he spent in D.C. It was very meaningful and quite long.
Do you think they're going to retire his jersey?
I think they probably should. I don't even know what number he was given. Probably like 64 or something, since he never saw the court. But yeah, retire 64. I'm with it. All right. Elsewhere.
Also, how
Tyler
old he is, by the way.
Elsewhere, talk about another game. The Indiana Pacers are looking really good right now. They beat the Philadelphia 76ers last night. Tyrese Halliburton is leading that team. He's got 32 assists and 0 turnovers in his last 2 games, including the win over the 76ers last night. How dangerous is this Pacers team? Because I feel like this is a team that we've kind of written off for years, ever since Paul George left, and it feels like they're kind of coming back into it now. How dangerous are they, JJ?
Yeah, I mean, they snapped the 76ers 8-game win streak last night. I mean, when you have the dynamic duo of Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner shoots threes now, which is shocking to me. But he does it, and he does it well. So this Pacers team is fun. I mean, they just got a bunch of athletes out there. You have Obi Toppin on this team, which, if you're the Knicks, you have to be war crimes, absolute war crimes, to pick Obi Toppin over Julius Randle. I mean, what are you doing? Obi Toppin finally given some freedom to go out there and show how athletic he is and to fit into a system. And he's just been spectacular this year. He is the perfect fit for this Pacers team, and they're just building a bunch of athletes out there. It's been a pleasure to see this Indiana Pacers team and how scrappy they are.
I'm so triggered right now. I'm so friggin' triggered. It's my day off. I'm in a good mood. I'm not on camera. I'm the ghost of Jason. And you got to bring up Obi friggin' Toppin to me right now. I got to sit here and listen to you. He's awesome. And
he's so good.
Tom Thibodeau could not figure out a way.
My team.
Tom Thibodeau could not figure out a way to make this guy work with this team. Like, I don't. If you're James Dolan and you're watching this, how?
Well, Jason, in James Dolan's defense, the obvious solution to this, for him at least, is to just ban Obi Toppin from ever coming into Madison Square Garden again, because that's what he tends to do with former Knicks players.
Carry on before I throw my entire monitor out the window. Moving on.
The most hilarious story to me so far this NBA season? The Los Angeles Clippers. They've lost 6 straight. They've not won a game with James Harden on their team. They're 3-7 so far this season. JJ, what is the problem in LA?
Oh, where do I begin? What is the problem in LA? They're about 10 years late to building this team. I mean, if this Clippers team, they take a time machine 10 years back, and you have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook, best team in the league by far, hands down, title favorites. They might go 82-0. 10 years later, however, in the year of our Lord 2023, they're just not a good basketball team. It's not good. Like, it's bad basketball. You have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Russell Westbrook taking all the shots, so no one else gets to touch the ball, and no one is shooting particularly that well either. I mean, Paul George is shooting 47% from the field, Kawhi 45%, Harden 47%, and Russell Westbrook 46%. So not terrible numbers, but when you're taking all of the shots on the team and you're not moving the ball around, that's not a recipe for success. And late in the game last night against the Denver Nuggets, they went small. They had Kawhi Leonard and Paul George guarding Nikola Jokic, and with Ivica Zubac on the bench. What is going on? Maybe they're trying to tank, but I don't know. They're bringing in Daniel Tice, so maybe Daniel Tice is going to be the solution. But James Harden did say they're going to be dangerous once they figure it out. So just a heads up to you, Sam, that they will be figuring it out. What it is, I don't know.
And when they will be figuring it out, March, April,
maybe figuring out vacation destinations.
That's
While
right.
they're in Cancun, they'll figure it out.
That's right. Cancun on 3. Yeah, it's very interesting to me. And just watching a little bit of that Clippers game last night, it seems like they've got decent enough role players. Why do you think that they're not putting the balls in there? Is it just a matter of these are all superstar level players and they're going to throw hissy fits like NBA superstars do when they don't get the ball? Or is it something more? Is it not having trust in, 5 through 11 on the bench, 5 through 7 on the bench to come in and score meaningful buckets? What do you think it is?
I mean, they're all ball dominant. All their star players are ball dominant. They need to have the ball in their hands to make an impact. And so when that happens, then you just have 4 guys dribbling the air out of the basketball. And maybe they just throw grenades to guys at the end of the shot clock. Like, justice for Bones Highland, justice for Robert Covington, like justice for Terrence Mann. These are all terrific basketball players that are not playing to their full potential because they're not allowed to.
Terrence Mann had a huge play in crunch time last night with like 15 seconds left. He stole the ball and gave the Clippers, it may have been more than that, and he may have led to that tying 3 from the Clippers. But regardless, yeah, I'm with you. Free all the guys, as they say. That's JJ Beale. Check out all his work over at AM New York Sports. I'm sure he'll be back on the program very, very soon to tell me more about the happenings in the National Basketball Association. JJ, thank you as always, my friend.
Always a pleasure, Sam.
We'll come back and get into the F1 race coming up out in Sin City this weekend. My guy Tino Pattigno has a ton to say about it. Coming up right after this. Keep it locked. It's the Sports Wrap. The Sports Wrap rolls on this beautiful Wednesday, November 15th. I'm Sam Yarnell in for Jason Page, as I am each and every Wednesday on the program. And now we welcome in my close personal friend and our motorsports expert here on the Sports Wrap. You can also check out all of his work for SiriusXM. He covers motorsports for them over there. Tino Pattigno. Tino, we got a huge race coming up in Vegas this weekend. But for the first time on the program, it's not NASCAR. Let's talk some F1, my guy. It's great to have you back on the Sports Wrap.
Yeah, great to be here, Sam. Always a pleasure. And it's going to be a crazy race this weekend. F1 Vegas. It's something that was speculated years ago. And now that the fact that it is here on the strip, in the bright lights, in the city, it's going to be absolutely insane to see.
First time ever for F1 out in Sin City. Let's talk a little bit about the F1 season so far, though, Tino. it's been much of the same in F1 this year. Max Verstappen has won 17 of the 20 races to date. He's already locked up his second championship. And now we've got to start this conversation. Is this the best season in all sports, Tino?
Yeah, and that's a great point. The fact that he's been so dominant this entire year, I honestly have to say, for my opinion, it is the greatest season in sports history that I've ever seen, or at least if not the best. You can throw it up in there with the likes of the Patriots almost going undefeated there, but they ultimately didn't get the job done, the Super Bowl. Some of the best teams in sports just aren't able to do what Max Verstappen has done. And now, okay, how is he being able to be this dominant? It comes from funding. It comes from being a part of Red Bull, the best team in F1. You have the most money in F1. You're going to have the best car. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm not putting anything down by Max Verstappen. He is a great driver. He is the best driver right now in F1. But, it's just insane to watch, because when you're looking at it from a betting standpoint too, right? You log on, there's odds with Max Verstappen. He's probably anywhere from -300 to -1,000 to win a race any given weekend. But the fact that there's a tab called betting without Verstappen is what really catches my eye. I mean, when have we ever seen something like that? Not only in the sports gambling world, but in the sports world. I mean, you don't see betting without the New England Patriots when they were on that run, right? Or, just other aspects like that. I mean, Tiger Woods, so dominant for such a long time. Sam, do you have any other examples of just crazy runs like this? I'm trying to think of them.
It's got to be the perfect Miami Dolphins team to me, right?
Yeah.
That perfection season for the Dolphins. They go on to win the Super Bowl. And I think it's a perfect comparison to where Max Verstappen is right now. But even if you look back, 5 years, not that far into the past in F1, it's something that we've seen before, right? Max Verstappen is not the first guy to kind of do this. So, Tino, I guess kind of explain to me and the listener, why does this happen in F1, that we have one guy who seems to win all the races, and then when that guy's done, it just transitions to another guy, and now he's winning all the races?
Exactly. Great point, because we've seen it with Lewis Hamilton before, with him going on a run, winning 7 championships. And even to relate it back to NASCAR real quick as well, we saw Jimmy Johnson be so dominant, 5 championships in a row. But to your point, we haven't, for outsiders looking in, right? Maybe you see the Netflix special and the documentary, and you're like, oh, I want to be a fan now. And then Max Verstappen just goes out and win every race. It's insane, because you would think that type of dominance that Hamilton and the guys before him even displayed wouldn't be that common. But when you look at F1, it is. And I think, the primary reason is funding. Whoever has the most funding is going to have the best car, but it's funding with the driver. They go hand in hand. If you win races, you're going to get more money. And then if you get more money, you're going to continue to be dominant. And that's what we've seen. We saw that with Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes for the early part of the 2000s, and now we're looking at it right now from Verstappen, and it does not look like he's going away anytime soon. Like next year, I expect the same exact thing. And it's difficult for F1 because, they want more passing in the races. They want, more views and eyeballs and engagements from different drivers, like Lando Norris stepping up. Charles Leclerc is not able to get it done. He is a face in the nation that people, or around the world rather, that people want to see win races. And the fact that they just haven't been able to get it done. Lando's been good. He's a young driver, but you look at how he's able to compete against the Red Bull cars. It's not just Verstappen either. Sergio Perez, maybe he can step up as well. And he's been the only driver. We have seen Carlos Sainz been able to go off and win a race that isn't a Red Bull driver winning, but it's still insane. Just one time this season. Exactly. That's a
one
great
out of
point.
20. One out of 20 races not won by the Red Bull team. I think that is hilarious. But my question, Tino, to you is this, because it seems like we're talking about something with the sport of F1, and maybe this is a fundamental question that's nuanced and even, the likes of you and I won't be able to understand or dissect. But you talk about these teams winning all this money, and the team who has the most money is clearly in first, right? Like a Verstappen, like a Red Bull. Why doesn't F1 we talk about them wanting more passing, wanting more competition in the race. Why doesn't F1 establish some sort of limit? Like in American sports, we have salary caps in terms of what teams can spend on cars or on engineers or mechanics or drivers or whatever it may be to try and even the playing field. Wouldn't that theoretically bring more eyes to the sport?
That's a great point. And I think, that is something that fans have discussed. Maybe execs have discussed, but when you have this much money coming in, right, I feel like that's not something they want to deter. I think, they want to keep the Red Bulls, bringing in their marketing, bringing in their ads, and keep having them dominate because, and it's been, Mercedes as well, the other sponsors in there, McLaren, but it's all huge names being brought into F1. And, a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between F1 and IndyCar or F1 and NASCAR? And it really is the funding that each sport gets. Different styles of racing, sure, but if someone's not able to get to that upper echelon of F1 and they're racing in IndyCar, which is still super competitive, but clearly the difference is thousands of dollars and millions of dollars. So to answer your question there, I think that's a great point, but I feel like they've been doing it for this way for so long that more money is better than less money. That's right. What I would think. Right. You can't go broke making money, and I think that's what the F1 drivers and F1 officials think there too.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? All right, let's get into this race in Vegas. First time F1 has ever made their way out to Sin City, like we talked about at the top. Tino, you've got a lot of connections to Vegas. You've spent a lot of your time out in Vegas. Obviously, a guy with a gold jacket, he knows Vegas like the back of his hand, right? Tell me what fans of F1 and residents of Vegas have kind of felt about this entire event for the years that we've been building up to it.
So I feel like to start off, they were excited about it. Oh, F1's going to be in my city. I just watched the documentary. That's going to be awesome. They're going to race through the streets. And then the setup started and people were like, hold on a second. There's traffic now. They are tearing down, bushes and trees and walkways to build a racetrack in the middle of where I'm trying to go to work and walk and be live a normal lifestyle. And I think their opinions really changed. And I think that is reflected in the ticket prices now, going down as well. We get into a little bit more later as well, but it's just insane to see that how much F1 has kind of come in and torn up their city, right, just for this one race. Now, don't get me wrong, like that's what you have to do. If you're going to have a big event, you're going to go all out, you're going to put it there. And at least, from what I was hearing, because I was in Vegas earlier this year for the NASCAR race, for the NASCAR playoff race, in fact, just last month or so. And I was trying to get a vibe. They weren't totally set up there for the F1. It was more early construction in terms of the racetrack and everything like that. But hearing what people had to say about it, it was a lot of mixed emotions. They were excited that F1 was going to be showcasing Vegas, but they didn't want all of the hassle of it actually being there because it was hurting their commute. It was hurting, their own sidewalks and everything like that. So I think, and especially another thing, too, is with the price of the tickets being so high, these people can't even go to the race themselves. Like it's the people that I'm talking to are Uber drivers and, fans at the NASCAR race and other people that are walking all on the street themselves, right? But they're not going to be going to the race. You're going to have millions of dollars, thousands of dollars for these tickets. And these people that are going to be going and watching the race are high-end, living large people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can't even get to the own race that's gonna be in your city and affecting your commute every day. Now, I even said this. I was like, well, could you guys, walk up to the track, kind of look through the fence area, right, and kind of consume it from that perspective? And they said no, because they're just gonna block it off. And I think that's a mistake by F1. I think, to me, if I'm a fan, if I live there and I'm a commuter, I'm a consumer of just Vegas in general, I want to be able to see it from afar, even if it's just like one little one little wing of the car driving past from afar. I want to be able to see something happening there, and then that's how I become an F1 fan. And I don't think they're executing that right. I don't think anyone should be blocked off from viewing it. And I think, with the setup and everything, it's hurting a lot of the fans that could have potentially become F1 fans this weekend.
So it's interesting when we talk about them going through a major city, right? Because Vegas is not the first major city that F1 goes through. Matter of fact, I would say, excuse me, one of the most famous races on the F1 circuit every year, the most notable, Monaco, right? That goes through the middle of the city. So Tino, what do they do differently in Monaco that they aren't doing in Vegas? Because you don't seem to get these same complaints from the residents of Monaco, right? They look forward to F1 coming to their city every year. It's a spectacle. It's a tradition. Why was F1 not able to successfully execute the same kind of plan for having their racetrack in the middle of a city center in Vegas?
Yeah, that's a great point. I can't say for sure because I haven't been in Monaco or talked to those people or seen what they've said really. But I will say this, I think, with it have been there at Monaco for so long now, and that being tradition, right? Maybe they're just used to it at this point. They didn't have to have that sort of just slammed right down in their faces in the middle of nowhere, right? Not in the middle of nowhere, right. Location wise, just time wise, like, oh, okay, now here it is, bang, like this is a racetrack. I think that's probably what the thought process is because they're not used to it because it's not already something that's there in Monaco. People growing up now, maybe that's what they thought in whenever the track was built there in Monaco. They're like, oh man, this is tearing up our city. Or maybe they thought of it as a good investment because then it brings people to Monaco. And with people in Vegas, you don't need anything more to bring people to Vegas. This race isn't promoting people to come to Vegas. It's promoting F1 in Vegas. Now, maybe it will. Maybe you see people from across the country coming to Vegas because of this track, the bright lights, the sphere, the marketing, and everything like that.
So that brings me to my next point. You talked about knowing Uber drivers in the Vegas area, right? Obviously, this is something that's going to bring people from every corner of the world into this city. From a public transportation standpoint, Vegas isn't necessarily a New York or a DC when it comes to that, but are they really prepared to move people who don't have their own way of transportation? Because Vegas, I'm not familiar with it. I've never been, but I know you are. It doesn't seem like a very walkable part of the country. You know what I mean? It just seems like if you're going from your hotel to the paddock or wherever you're watching the race from, that's going to be more than just a walk. It may be a commute. So how is Vegas prepared from a public transportation standpoint to deal with all these people?
I do think they have plans in place. I honestly will chime in there, and I feel like it is a walkable place from being there. Okay. You walk on the strip and everything like that, and maybe not the most walkable, but definitely I think it gives you. There is the option too, right? It's not like you have to drive everywhere there, and that's not what I've seen. Because when the racetrack's put right in the strip, you should be able to, or at least along there in that area, you should be able to walk and get to where you got to go from there, from where all the casinos are, the hotels, the big buildings and everything like that. Now, in terms of the driving, I feel like there are plans in place. There should be, right? There should be shuttles driving, you from place to place, from turn to turn. And if they don't have that, that's a mistake. I haven't seen much of from that point of view. So that's a great question because like the transportation, that's sometimes something that goes a little unnoticed or flies under the radar. And then that affects the overall fan experience, just like you're mentioning there. So I would hope with all the money that's going into this event that F1 is prepared for something like that. They do take care of the consumer and the people that are ultimately buying the tickets to go to this race, because we know that if you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to be able to, or at least it's going to be very hard to see the race. And that to me, right. It goes hand in hand. Like, for instance, when I was in Chicago for the NASCAR Chicago street race, the awesomest thing that I saw when I was there was walking outside the track and seeing people lined up against the fence. These weren't people that bought tickets, but this is a street race. They live in the city streets. They're walking home from work, going to work, going out to lunch, and they see a NASCAR race right there. So they want to go up and look into the fence. And like, let's be real, it's not such a a great view, but it's something that
No.
gets the person attracted. And I think that's something if you don't buy a ticket, I don't think you need to have to go and look at that obstructed view with other people lined up. I think that's something that's a great visual for, to market, right? To see people lined up against the stands there, against the fence there. And I think that's something that F1 should have done. And we'll see if people get to be able to have that view, on social media. I'm sure we'll look at different videos and angles there that we get. My favorite so far has been like from the hotel buildings looking down. That's been awesome to see. But we'll have to see when it comes race day.
So we've talked enough about where the track is going to go through and how it affects those people. Before we get into your picks and how we're going to make some money on this race, Tino, give me like 1, 2, or 3 big takeaways that you see looking at this track and how it's going to run through Las Vegas, what drivers it may play into the strings of.
For sure. Well, with it being a street race, we're looking at Verstappen. He's going to dominate once again. With it being any race, we're always looking at Verstappen, honestly, at this point. It's interesting that I think that's been my biggest point here. With it being a new track, a new configuration, and a new city, with everything that's going into this race, who will be a factor? And I think that's my one big takeaway is it's going to be Verstappen again. He is so just wired to win every race this season. Obviously, he hasn't won every race so far, but 17 out of 20 is insane. And I honestly thought he locked up the championship a few weeks ago. They're coming off of a couple week break there to where, okay, he already has a championship. Maybe he doesn't want to go out and, run as hard as he has been all season because he can't win every single race, right? Since the Ferrari driver and Carlos Sainz, snuck one in there and he won the championship. So to me, I was like, oh, maybe he'll come out a little relaxed. No, he did not. He pedaled to the metal, like literally, absolutely trying to dominate every single lap and every single race. So to me, I think that's my first takeaway is Verstappen is going to be dominant in this one because it's just another highlight in his career. To win the first ever Vegas race will be something special. Takeaway 2, you got 14 turns, I think 4 major passing zones in this one. There was like a nice loop, it looks like around the sphere, and then some sharp corners as well, but a pretty wide track. Lots of straightaways, so we're going to see the cars going very fast in this one. So takeaway 2 is going to be speed. It's going to be a great race in this one. And then the laps, only 50 laps. Might seem a little short, but the track is 3.8 miles long as well. So that's something to consider. Pretty long distance there. I think if that's my third takeaway, it's going to be I'd love to see how that measures out to be a good race or not. I mean, I hope there's some passing. I hope it gives the fans what they are looking for. And I hope the drivers are comfortable too, right, racing in this one, because you really don't know until you get out there and practice, qualify, and ultimately the race to see how the cars are going to handle on this brand new track. And another thing I'll mention too is I don't think the bright lights, I don't think the fanfare, like once you're locked into the car there, I think the drivers are kind of set. They're not seeing the sphere, right? They're not seeing anything because they're also going, 200 miles per hour. So
SportsWrap rolls on.
I think that's probably what the thought process is because they're not used to it because it's not already something that's there. In Monaco, people growing up now, maybe that's what they thought.
Country, you know what I mean? It just seems like if you're going
from there, from where all the casinos are, the hotels, the big buildings and everything like that. Now,
3 big takeaways.
Set, they're not seeing the sphere, right? And see them drive into the corner fast, have good corner exit, and be able to make passes as well. Lando Norris has really not even surprised me, but impressed me about the driver he's becoming. This is the potential he's had. And the McLaren cars have been really, really fast. Mercedes they've been consistently up there as well, but have not been in contention for wins, really. They've been podium finishes, sure, but it's either Russell having a good day or Hamilton having a good day. Let's get them both up there as well. So right now, I got to go Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc is plus 1,400 there. I'm staying away from him. Charles has let me down almost every race this season, and I think he's just had a Leclerc season. From he's crashed on opening pace laps, like, and things like that. His car has broken down. Their strategy at Ferrari is really what does these drivers in. Is they just have not been able to match the speed of Red Bull, but no one else has. So that's fine. But the strategy that they have, he'll be lead in, right? And then, okay, come in, pit, change your tires, or leave him on the different type of tires than the other drivers have been switching on to. Just like stuff that doesn't make sense, really. And ultimately ends up hurting their drivers and costing them great finishes. Not that he would be in contention to get the win or anything, but definitely a podium finish. It drops him down there from, maybe getting a podium to now he's fighting for a top 4, 5, 6 finish there, trying to get some points out of it. So to me, Leclerc has let us down so many times this season. And Lewis Hamilton's a driver I definitely want to talk about in this one too, right? When we look on the odds board, he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, the 5th favorite in this one. So obviously maybe with the speed he's had, that's been a factor. But with it being an American race, everyone loves him from here, right? Everything. And I feel like he gets a lot of the publicity because he is just so loved after what he's been able to do prior to Verstappen. I think Verstappen's now at this point probably the bad guy, right? Probably like Tom Brady Patriots era, and Lewis is Tom Brady Bucks era. And I think that's the difference between them two. And they just kind of adore him and love him, and Verstappen's got fans obviously, but like in the America, and I'm just seeing more Lewis fans, just from people growing up and everything like that. So it'd be cool to see him get a win in this one. I don't think he's gonna, but he's plus 1,900 to do so, and I think he'll have a strong run. I think a podium finish is honestly, not out of the question for Lewis in this one.
All right, well, there you go. That's Tino Pattigno. You can check out all his work at Tino Pattigno on all of your social media feeds, whether that's TikTok, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. It's now X. He's on the show plenty. We'll have him on again to talk real soon. Tino, always great to talk about the real fast engines with you, my friend.
Appreciate it, Sam.
The Sports Wrap rolls on. We'll get into some NFL news and notes and wrap up the show talking with some MLB free agency coming up next. Sports Wrap rolls on a Wednesday, November 15th, the year of our Lord, as JJ Beale likes to affectionately say.
What was that about, by the way? Can you explain what that is about? Is there something behind that?
It's an internet thing. It's an internet thing when you're trying to emphasize that something that you're talking about is not necessarily pertinent to the current era or current juncture. You say the year of our Lord, whatever. Okay. Anyway, thanks to JJ. Told you Tino had a lot to talk about the F1 race coming up in Vegas, but that was awesome. We will be tailing his bets and hopefully making some money. I'd like to see someone besides Max Verstappen win in Vegas this weekend. All right, let's get into some NFL news and notes. Big story coming out of Cleveland this morning. Quarterback Deshaun Watson has a shoulder fracture. He's sidelined for the rest of 2023. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, according to Kevin Stefanski, will get the start this Sunday for the Cleveland Browns. PJ Walker will back him up. I doubt that Dorian Thompson-Robinson is the starter for the rest of the season for Cleveland, especially in the position in which they find themselves with a stellar defense and decent enough weapons, even without Nick Chubb, decent enough weapons on offense. I think that they'll probably go sign somebody off the street. Obviously, Carson Wentz not available anymore, but you hear rumblings of someone coming out of the booth. A Matt Ryan, Jason said during the break, Joe Flacco is still out there. Maybe he gets a chance. Interesting. It's very interesting to see. So far this season without Deshaun Watson, because he has already missed 3 games, the Browns are 1-2. The win is against San Francisco. The losses are to Baltimore and Seattle. That Baltimore loss was a bad one. for the Cleveland Browns. They're going to struggle without their starting quarterback. And this really is not just a knock on Deshaun Watson, because it is a knock on Deshaun Watson, who has not been seemingly able to stay healthy or show his drive to be a winner since getting traded to Cleveland. This also speaks very, very poorly, to me at least, on Browns ownership and Browns player personnel, Browns coaching. This is a team in Cleveland that had Josh Dobbs before the season started on the roster, and they decided to let him walk in favor of Dorian Thompson-Robinson and PJ Walker, who have shown their true colors so far through the 3 games that they've had to fill in for Deshaun Watson in. And that's not great when your professional scouting department is telling you that a guy in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who is much younger, and a guy in PJ Walker, who was a quarterback just a year, maybe 2 ago on one of, if not the worst teams in the league in the Carolina Panthers, they're telling you that those 2 are better than Josh Dobbs, who went and took an Arizona Cardinals team that no one expected anything from and won multiple games with them, and now is on a team in Minnesota playing an amazing quarterback. Quite frankly, the things that he had to do on 5 days notice, 5 days after being traded to the team, having to come in, Josh Dobbs is the real deal. And it looks really bad that the Browns let him just walk for nothing. This is a tough spot for Cleveland, and it's a tough time to be a Cleveland football fan. I'm very interested to see how the reaction is when we get 3 weeks into this injury, 4 weeks into this injury, heck, by the end of the season, in terms of the Cleveland fan relationship with their management and with their ownership, and if they're seeing the same things that I am, because quite frankly, on its face, this seems like a real letdown from a player personnel perspective, when you could have had Josh Dobbs start 3 games already and now 4 and the rest of the season, but instead you're stuck with DTR and PJ Walker. Just don't necessarily see the connection there in terms of scouting. The Jets released Michael Carter. Wrong guy, wrong running back. Not sure why they're punting on a 4th round pick from 2 years ago instead of the 30-something-year-old running back they signed off the street for basically nothing at the beginning of the season. But hey, that's a them decision, not me. This is not the guy who the Jets needed to get rid of, and it's just kind of grasping at straws, trying to find a scapegoat for why their season has taken such a horrible turn. Because quite frankly, even without a quarterback, a competent quarterback, they should still be better than they are, and they've still been quite a letdown this season. You talk about the Aaron Rodgers injury, guy who's speculating that he'll come back in a month, which would be, not even 3.5 months after tearing his Achilles. If he does come back in that short of a time period, there needs to be a serious discussion about how legitimate the tearing of the Achilles was. If it wasn't just a calf strain or a calf sprain that was very, very deep and very bad. Players, let alone players who have to drive off of the leg in which they just tore their Achilles, should not be able to come back from that magnitude of injury that quickly. I don't care about the technology, the recovery time. Sitting on your butt for a month as a 30-whatever-year-old, as Aaron Rodgers is, should make you incapable of throwing a pass in the NFL for 2 weeks at least, let alone doing it for 2.5 months. And now he's expecting to come back that quickly. I just don't see it happening. If he does do it, again, serious conversation into, did he actually tear his Achilles, or was it kind of a way that they could get him into the locker room, not have him be a national story, which hasn't been the case. He still very much has been, but try and oversell this injury so that he could come back. Interesting conversation needs to be had. Bottom line here is the Jets are scrambling, trying to do anything, waiving their 4th round pick from just 2 years ago. Finally, the Texans linebacker Denzel Perryman has been suspended 3 games for repeated violations of player safety measures, rules. The most recent of which obviously came in the Texans game against the Bengals when he hit Jamar Chase, that forcible helmet-to-helmet contact. So Perriman's now going to miss games against the Cardinals, Jags, and Browns. I'm not worried about the games against the Cardinals and Browns, especially with the quarterback situation in Cleveland now. I think that those won't be that hard for the Texans, although it'll be interesting to see the Texans offense against the Cleveland defense. I'm more concerned about that Jaguars game in the middle, because for those of us who have tickets on the Texans to win the AFC South, that is a game that they must win. And Denzel Perryman is a huge part of that run-stopping offense. So stopping Travis Etienne and the rest of the Jaguars, yes, it's Travis Etienne and the rest of the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence has thrown fewer touchdown passes this season than games he's played in, which, again, unacceptable for an NFL quarterback, but also unacceptable for an NFL quarterback who was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft less than half a decade ago. So going to be tough for the Texans to stop Travis Etienne and that Jags offense in that game in 2 weeks, especially without Denzel Perryman. But I think they'll still be able to do it. Time will only tell. It'll be good to have Denzel Perryman back in the lineup when they get him back. We'll come back and wrap up the sports wrap. I've got something to say about Major League Baseball free agency. It's all coming up next. You're listening to the Sports Wrap. Wrapping up this Wednesday edition of the Sports Wrap, Sam Yarnell in for Jason, as I am each and every Wednesday here on the program. Thanks again to JJ Beale and Tino Pattigno for joining us today. Couple of pieces of baseball news to get you out of here on, because I'm a baseball guy and it's always going to be in the show. Skip Schumacher of the Miami Marlins and Brandon Hyde of the Baltimore Orioles are your 2023 managers of the year in Major League Baseball. Two deserving candidates, Schumacher and Hyde, both heavy favorites at about the midway point of the season, once the Marlins had established that they were going to be a playoff contender with that roster, and once the Orioles got into first place in the AL East. He kind of just knew that these two guys were going to be the guys. Credit to both of them. They both did amazing jobs, and I hope that Schumacher can figure something out with the ownership situation going on down in Miami. All right, another story that I would love to get the ghost of Jason's opinion on here. Drama in the Bronx, drama north of Manhattan. This is one hell of a story. This is the most Yankee story ever. So Brian Cashman last week, or early this week, goes into the media talking about Giancarlo Stanton and contract negotiations, and says, Stanton, if we give him a contract, he'll probably wind up getting hurt again, were his exact words. Again, not factually debatable. He is a guy who suffers injuries all the time, has missed massive parts of the last few seasons, last season alone, seemingly. Then Giancarlo Stanton's agent, Joe Wolf, says something along the lines of, you have to be made of Teflon both mentally and physically if you want to play in New York for the Yankees. This is going to get very, very interesting. Just because of,
everybody's just saying the quiet
Stanton
part.
Signed with the Yankees.
Yeah, but the problem is everybody's just saying the quiet part out loud now. You know, Brian, the agent for Stanton is just saying the quiet part out loud, that New York has become almost an impossible place to play, especially with the Yankees, because the expectation level is so high. Agents around baseball already know this. Management around baseball, other GMs around base, everybody knows this at this point. Everybody knows if you want to come and play in New York at this point, this is what you sign up for. You're signing up for, booing fans when you have your first 0 for 15 or a 1 for 25. The fans are impatient. In fact, Yankee fans have, and I say this as a Yankee fan, they've almost become caricatures of themselves. Like now they're booing just for the sake of booing. Oh, I have an expensive ticket so I can boo. I mean, that's the reality. And they're all that Yankee fans are doing by doing this is scaring away the talented free agents that might be out there, or guys that might say, hey, I'll waive my no trade, but I don't want it to be to the Yankees because I don't want to deal with that headache. And it's not, and look, Met fans do it to a degree, but not to the degree that Yankee fans do it. Because the expectation level for the Mets is, we know we're going to suck. We know that some way, somehow, we're going to screw it up at the end of the year. Yankee fans, though, they just think everything they touch is going to turn to gold. Go look at Sonny Gray. I was watching him in this postseason and thinking, didn't the Yankees have Sonny Gray? And you could do this with countless players year after year. You will see this.
And you and I were talking off air a little bit about it, Jason, and this was my comparison, and I think it rings true because of the career trajectories of both of these players. When you think about Stanton starting out in Miami, was one of the faces, if not the face of that team, but definitely one of them on a great Miami Marlins team that was very talented and should have won way more games than it did. And then coming over to New York, not having the success in New York and leading to this, it is so comparable to Jacoby Ellsbury for me, a guy who was a cornerstone of the Red Sox outfield for years, won world championships with them, came to New York under the same kind of hopes that Stanton did, going to be one of the key pieces in a team that goes back to the World Series and gets us the first championship since '09, right, as the Yankees. And he didn't, and it was a letdown, and it's kind of been the same thing. And by the end of it, I feel like Yankees fans' relationships with Ellsbury was much closer to what it is with Stanton. Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I'm just looking at the quote from Cashman, and I think it's important to read it because it is, to me, it is the height of irresponsible, unprofessional, whatever you want to say, whether it's true. By the way, what he's saying has a lot of merit, and it might be true. You still don't say this. We try to limit the time he's down, Cashman said at the general manager meetings in Arizona, according to the New York Daily News. But I'm not going to tell you he's going to play every game next year because he's not. He's going to wind up getting hurt again more likely than not because it seems to be part of his game. When I read that quote, I'm like, how does Brian Cashman have a job? Not because of this.
How does he manage one of 30 MLB teams?
Yes.
It does not make sense to me.
It's the cumulative effect of everything that's gone on here over the last, several months with this team and with Cashman. And
I would even
Jason
say
Wolf,
years. Go back to the ALCS losses.
And Jason Wolf represents the biggest free agent international pitcher on the market in Yamamoto, this kid that's coming over from Japan in this offseason. The world is too small. The industry is too small. You cannot do these things and then expect that these agents who represent these guys, everybody talks, everybody's friends, that these guys are going to want to come and play for the Yankees when you have a GM that's saying these kinds of dumb things. It's mind-blowing. As a Yankee fan, I feel like we have little to look forward to. No matter how much money we spend in the offseason, no matter what cosmetic changes we make to this roster before next year, I feel bad for Yankee fans right now because we're stuck with incompetent management right now. Between Boone, between Cashman, all the way up to the owner and Hal Steinbrenner.
I'm with you, and as an outsider, not that I feel like the team that I root for, the Nationals, their GM would be incapable of doing this. I feel like in some sick, twisted world, there's probably a chance, right? If the relationship with the player is that frayed. But you're Brian Cashman. You are one of maybe 3 household names as a general manager. You are a general manager of the most or second most famous baseball team in history. You've got to understand your role, and you're in the biggest media market in the world. You've got to understand that anything you say is going to be taken the worst way possible. And there's no way, for as long as Brian Cashman has done this, that he didn't understand that. And whether it was just a mental slip up or actually something that he meant to say, is very interesting. But I'm with you. I know the Steinbrenner family loves Brian Cashman, and that's why he's kept his job for so long. I cannot, if they lose Stanton over this, and they lose other free agents over this, I don't see I don't see that relationship surviving this.
It's less about losing Stanton. The guy hit 190 and played 100 games
no,
last year.
But you think about the effect it has for
Stanton.
others.
Right, that's what I'm going to say. It's less about losing Stanton. It's more about everything else you're going to lose as a result of the comments. It's the collateral damage beyond Stanton. And the fact that you have an agent that represents international players who already have this anxiety when it comes to playing in New York. Go all the way back to Hideki Irabu, for crying out loud. Go look him up. One of those first Japanese imports that came in. It was a disaster for the Yankees. Big pussy toad. Fat pussy toad was what George Steinbrenner called him. Fat pussy toad. So the Yankees already don't have a great reputation as an organization when it comes to these guys. And then you go and act like this when it comes to Stanton. Again, whether it's true or not is irrelevant. It's the damage and it's the look that it gives your organization.
It'll be very interesting to see if the Yankees sign any free agents. And that leads me into my last point. I think Shohei Ohtani is a great baseball player, maybe the greatest of all time already. We need to stop talking about him. The Ohtani sweepstakes have taken over baseball media. It's all we talk about when we talk about baseball right now. And we are completely overlooking the 2024 free agent class. You have guys, just to name a few, Cody Bellinger, World Series champion, Matt Chapman, one of the most electric third basemen in the league, Sonny Gray, Josh Hader, one of the best relievers in the game, JD Martinez, World Series champion, Jordan Montgomery, fresh off of leading that Texas pitching staff to the World Series, Aaron Nola, the ace of the Philadelphia Phillies for 5 years now? Blake Snell was just in the Cy Young race in the National League. Tim Anderson had the worst season of his career, but he's still a multi-time All-Star. Aroldis Chapman, is he too old? Don't know, but some team's going to take a flyer on him. Jack Flaherty is one of the best starting pitchers on the market, and you just heard me mention a bunch of the other ones. Rhys Hoskins missed this entire year with a knee injury, and everyone seems to have forgotten that he's one of the better first basemen in the National League when, you have that upper echelon of Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson, but Rhys Hoskins is not that far behind those guys. Craig Kimbrell is a guy who at times has been the best reliever in baseball. The free agent class right now is so stacked, and everyone is just continuing to worry about the Ohtani sweepstakes. There's going to be some team that punts on Ohtani, some contender, whether it's the Dodgers, whether it's the Mariners, the Giants. There's going to be some team that punts on Ohtani and goes out and locks down, 3 of the however many 10 guys I just mentioned, and they're going to be better off than the team that signs Ohtani. The free agent class in Major League Baseball right now is outstanding, and teams need to stop worrying about Ohtani so much and start looking into alternate ways, because quite frankly, you can pay a guy who's a better hitter than Ohtani, and you can pay a guy who's a better pitcher than Ohtani, and they're both on that list I just read. They're both out there for free right now. That'll do it for this Wednesday edition of the Sports Wrap. Thanks again to Tino Pattigno, JJ Beale, and the ghost of Jason Page for joining me on the program today. We will be back tomorrow. Jason and I will together. We'll break down the Thursday night football matchup and much, much more.
Will your voice be back too?
My voice will be back, and it has to be back because we have a banger of a Thursday night game tomorrow. Bengals, Ravens for the AFC North. My gosh, get your popcorn ready. I can't wait to talk about it. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Thanks so much. Another episode of the Sports Wrap in the books on a Wednesday.